Welcome back. It's Mama Made It Friday here on Business Unusual. And for this edition, I'm joined in studio by a strategist turned creative. Veli Ngubane is the co-founder and group managing director at Avatar, which is a full-service marketing agency. And he also serves on the advisory board as a chairman at Red and Yellow School. And he also sits at the IAB's Transformation and Education Council. And is also called upon frequently to judge many industry awards such as the Loeries, Apex, Bookmarks, among many others, and also named in this year's Mail and Guardian Top 200 South Africans, not this year, but in 2017, I should rather say. And it takes us through his own journey this afternoon for our Mama Made It segment. Veli,
Bob,
how are you, my brother?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Let's maybe start off from the beginning, long before Avatar, because one would think that the seeds that created this particular full-service agency came much, much earlier.
Yeah. Very early. I think for my earliest memory, I've always been an entrepreneur. From Estradini, seeing how we can play soccer for money, hiring out my bicycle. Sure. So it's always been in me. And there's been a lot of failures, a lot of businesses that I've set up, that I've sold. So I think a lot of people know the Avatar story because it's a public success. But in any entrepreneur's journey, there has to be a lot of lessons before you get to success, yeah?
Let's talk about the failures. I mean, often people who sit where you're sitting now are very quick to talk about the successes, and it makes for a very nice segment. But I want to hear about, a little bit about some of the failures and what you learned in that process.
I think as you go, you know, sometimes ideas sound good in your head, and sometimes the market is not ready, or you haven't really refined your product enough. So I've had a lot of thoughts where it sounded good, you know, and I've gone on to try implement things and they just haven't worked out. So, but those failures teach you, one, you must learn very quickly not to repeat it. But I think it's all in the course of being an entrepreneur, you know, fail quick and learn even quicker.
And of course, fail forward as well. And, you're failing forward got you, of course, to the point now where you've got a multi-service and multi-platform agency that you're running and in Avatar. Let's talk about the early days there. Much has been made about 2,000 Rand in startup capital and now close on to a turnover of just over 200 million.
So I talk a lot about the creative economy. You know, I think it's one part of the economy that can really liberate and create employment.
Sure.
So we started there. You know, the barrier to entry is not trucks, it's not tractors. It's actually how you think, you know, and I usually say, we've got it. We've got the insights, we've got the market. So we converted that into a need in the industry. If you know anything about advertising, it's really an untransformed industry that lacks the insight. And it's quite weird because the majority of the customers are black. So we saw that gap and we started converting our thinking and making brands more relevant in the consumer's lives. So that is really what Avatar and the space that Avatar plays in, you know. And it came at a stage where my business partner, Zibusiso, is more digital and it came at a point where, and I come from above the line media, it came at a point where what's killing what? Is technology killing advertising? Is there still needed for a TV ad? Then we came up with something that is integrated, that is both digitally focused and also uses above the line medium to get the communication.
And what are some of the other interesting campaigns that you've done, which for you have said, I'm actually on the right track here? This campaign shows me, and what I've learned and the insights and the value we've added to a client shows that we're actually on the right path.
I guess H&M comes to mind. We were brought on.
Crisis management?
No, really we were the first to shoot a campaign on African soil. So they came to us with insights and said, you know, we want a local agency to give us the insights for a campaign. And we shot the H&M campaign, so much so that we were invited to Sweden to talk on diversity and insights and stuff like that. So that is one campaign that I think, besides just the creativity around it, actually changed a brand that was at that particular point very negatively perceived by the market to a more positive outlook. So that's one campaign.
Some interesting things have happened, certainly, on that
Yeah.
end. I mean, if I
Yeah.
think about the store sort of flash mobs, not so long ago, to how it's perceived in, the public discourse now.
I think they invested a lot. They took it seriously. They took diversity seriously. And they wanted to learn and actually be relevant to the market. And I think that intention really helped them get through the storm that they were in.
Yeah. We've spoken quite a bit now, I guess, about the creative side of things and maybe sort of where you and your co-founder come from and the vantage point that you bring into the space. I'm quite interested in the operational side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, even barriers to entry in this market segment of the creative economy that we're talking about here. And also issues of transformation, but also operationally, how you organize yourself also might influence, what the numbers look like at the end of the month and what that P&L looks like as well.
Yeah. Well, efficiency. I come from an agency because, creatives think that just because you're creative, you can be late and it's kind of like fun and stuff. So I think appointing the right people, especially in the account management and the project management, guides your creatives to say, okay, you've got a certain timeline, because creativity is usually it comes to you. So you need the right people, a balance of creativity and a balance of the suits, as we call it in our industry, that will make sure that the work is out on time and the efficiency and systems behind that. And that's very, very important. I think a lot of entrepreneurs in the creative space discount that, but it's the delivery and the efficiency of your agency is very, very important.
Let's talk about the cost of pitching. I mean, I remember, speaking to you and even speaking to some of your colleagues within the industry about some of the big challenges, especially if you've got, an agency that is trying to compete with some of the big names in the industry. And you might not have as deep pockets to sort of put together all of the resources, human or otherwise, to pitch effectively and respond to, a brief from a client. Is that, a barrier to entry? Does that constitute, I guess, a competitive issue in this particular industry?
I think it does as you go for the bigger accounts. But how we started pitching proactive work where we didn't necessarily want to be the main agency, but we saw a gap, whether it be inside, whether it be the way the brand was doing the digital work. So I think as you grow bigger, as we have, it becomes more costly because I think brands are looking for a more structured product. But I think when you see an opportunity in a brand, it's just the power of the idea at the beginning. But as you do scale up, it becomes a bit costly to pitch, especially for the bigger brands.
You got 2 offices now.
Yeah.
How long have you had that? And more importantly, what complexity does that introduce?
Look, I think it's finding the good people. We got a Cape Town office and our headquarters are in Joburg.
Sure.
But we're in the business of people. When you find the good people and you empower them to actually run with it, you attain success. We've grown by relying on others. And I think that's really been the recipe for our growth, to find the good people, find the people that are around the room that are more intelligent than us, that can take the business forward.
You speak about digital being a key part of how you deliver the work.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. What cost efficiencies does that bring into your model? That maybe the historic model of being a full service agency might have been different.
Look, it's moving with the consumer. People are on digital. People are consuming digital platforms. They're very active on digital. So you need a product that caters to that, go to where the consumers are. So it's not necessarily more cost effective. I think it's just more efficient. Before it was almost like the poorer cousin of TV, and that's not the case. I think in the space that we're in now, you can do very complex things in digital. But I think the big thing about digital is that it's where the consumers are moving, and there's really exciting things around that space integrated with the main communication that we do.
Yeah, let's talk demand side briefly. A lot of trends, a lot of changes happening on the part of brands themselves. Budgets are shrinking. Brands are becoming a bit more sort of skimpy in terms of what they spend on. How does that influence Avatar?
Look, you have to be efficient. Look, our model is a very entrepreneurial model. So when I'm working on a brand or the culture in the company is to make sure that we are cost effective in a way that adds value to the client. So we find a way to meet your objectives in that manner. So Budgets are shrinking, but we have to find innovative ways to target the consumer. And also, consumers are getting more sophisticated. You know,
more discerning as well.
More discerning. What you could get away with 10, 15 years ago, you can't. I remember when I was younger, there was this ad on Ukhozi FM that says, "Umungayazi pine nut, awazi lutho." And we kind of like believe that, you know, if you don't know pine nut, you don't know anything. But now brands have to get into a collaborative space, because for the first time that the consumer can actually talk back. You know, when you put a message out, they can actually challenge. And we've seen consumers challenge brand positionings where they've had to actually change to say, no, actually, you're not your brand promise. So cost efficiency, but actually understanding the change in the consumer mindscape as well.
I want us to pause there for a second, because I think you're raising something very important. In as much as, yes, you're trying to speak to a consumer who's going to push back, I think there's also been some structural changes in terms of the role that that consumer plays. I mean, a lot of people are talking now about a prosumer. A consumer who is also co-creating and co-producing that brand story with the brand and contributing in that kind of way. We'll come back just after the break to take a look at what that then means for the future of your own work and, of course, as you scale some of the work that you do. I'm in conversation with Veli Ngubane is the co-founder and group managing director of a full-service marketing agency, Avatar, and we're going to take a quick break now. But remember, you can engage with us as always on social media. Ask us your questions and tell us what you think on the socials. Our hashtag is hashtag Business Unusual, hashtag Newsroom Africa, Newsroom 405, I should rather say. And you can also tag me on Twitter on @AYTawik. I'm Ngubane there on the Twitter, and our official handle is @405business_. See you on the other side of this break. You're watching Business Unusual here with me, Ayabonga Tawe. It's a Mama Made It Friday, and I'm in conversation with the co-founder and group managing director at Avatar, Veli Ngubane, and Ngubane, I should say. Let me not say Ngubane, because then maybe you would be Tammy's brother.
Cousin.
Kill me for that. But that being said, Veli, I mean, this point I was making before we went to the break about a prosumer. How does that influence how you deliver to clients and the service model that you have?
I think brands are more in a collaborative space, and they're more about experiences now. You know, advertising is moving to this beautiful merge with experiences. So how brands make you feel and how the consumer is influencing the direction. I think that's the next level of advertising, and that's what we are putting in all our brands. You know, how are we collaborating and how are we hearing? Because for the first time, people are volunteering insights. They're volunteering their brand like or their dislike. So as strategists, we need to look at that as well as data to say, how do we influence the brand's trajectory in that? Yeah.
Just, you know, as strategists, I guess the other part of that is, you know, the client education piece. You work a lot with big brands, but one would think that you also have maybe smaller brands who are medium-sized businesses or even smaller businesses, where the task of educating the client about what this is going to do for their business and the impact that that's going to have on their business becomes a lot larger.
Yeah, look, I think education, whether you're a big brand or a small brand, there's so many brands that are competing for the same space. So people knowing what your product is about, the causes, you know, what I found judging the lorries, and it's actually an international trend, is especially with the millennials. They're looking at what does your brand stand for besides what they're selling. So what is the cause that is behind your brand? So that's becoming more important to communicate, to say, we are this brand, but we also stand for this. And what is our stance to this particular topic? So brands are moving to that space a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you've worked with an interesting set here of brands, and you know, I'm quite interested in what some of your work looks like in the public sector space, because one would think that there's always this distinction made between private sector and public sector, and you know, in terms of even like approval of briefs, how quickly you get feedback on some of the work that you're doing. Is there a functional difference there, or a business is a business, a client is a client?
Not really. You know, a business is a business and a client is a client. Now, as they grow bigger, they might have different needs. But for an agency, we have to tailor-make and suit the client's needs and requirements. We work on Sanral very closely, and we love working on Sanral because
you're trying to make us pay tolls?
It's dynamic. Yeah. You know, I think from when we were appointed, I think we've become more engaged, and I think people are understanding that Sanral is not only about e-tolls, but about the bigger road network. I just come from Cape Town, where they drove electric cars from Joburg for the first ever to Cape Town, which is beautiful. So brands are brands, and you need as an agency to be able to adapt to their working style, and that's what we do. So besides us being contractors, we want to be partners, and we want to get into the business, understand how you work. So there's not a major difference. And if everyone around the table has got the common goal of making sure that that brand comes out even better and deliver great creative work, then it's all good.
It's quite interesting. I mean, I must say with Sanral that you've kind of changed the debate, as you say, away just from Sanral as the administrator of the e-tolls, but to Sanral as a connecting industry in our economy, linking families with people, and linking key sectors of the economy with the consumers as well. We've also seen some of the aerial shots that you guys have got in there. So quite an interesting campaign that you've done there. But when you look at it now in hindsight, and you look at how the marketplace perceives Sanral prior to your own involvement, what conclusions do you arrive at?
It's important. So as brand practitioners, we have to look at the mood, have certain strategic objectives. And our view was that issues of the economy and the importance of a brand like Sanral in our daily lives. And I think people used to drive home, drive to Durban, drive to the Eastern Cape, and they'd almost disassociate that
you're driving on Sanral roads.
And I think even the road trip now just proved how beautiful and how much investments go into our roads network. So I love it when I look back at a brand, and I think traditionally we've gone for brands that we've had to change a lot of public perceptions, which is exciting for us, because when people, as you said, get more education about what the brand is about, then they can decide. We've got people on social media now protecting us. And speaking and having those natural organic ambassadors. And that's a beautiful thing to get a brand to that stage.
Yeah. What does a day look like in this space, Veli? I mean, you make it sound so nice, but I can, tell certainly from the experience of many people I know who work in this industry, the 14-hour days are a thing, and the hectic client briefs are also something that doesn't look as glamorous.
Yeah. You have to love what you do. I think it's the dedication. I grew up around people in the medical field. And I'd wonder, you've just come back, you're on call, but it's because they loved saving lives. Now, we love working on brands. So I think unless you love what you do, you won't survive in advertising. And I think that's why we make our offices so nice. You'll see agencies have got a lot of couches because a lot of people...
Got to take that nap.
You've got to take that nap. So it becomes part of your life. But because the results are so public, and I think as agencies we're so competitive to make sure that our brand works, because our stuff is very visual. People can see the adverts, they can see the billboard. So we've got a very visual art. So, but it starts with passion and loving what you do. And unless you do, you won't survive a long time in this industry.
I'm also quite interested in the industry strengthening work that you're doing. Right? It might be, building a pipeline of brand professionals for the next generation through the support work and, the advisory and oversight work that you do in the training space. It might even be, playing in the recognition space, the awards, judging some of that. Why do you see that as important? And more importantly, how has that work complemented what you do inside the agency and some of the insights that you take inside the agency?
So it's about unleashing this creative economy. I went to UCT, I had to study law because creativity was always seen as a risk, So for me, I always want to be that example to people. I think it's only when I got my first house and a car that even my family was like, okay, maybe this creative
now you can go and do
So I think educating even parents about that there's a career in creativity, making adverts. I don't think it was careers that were publicly available in the past. So my work, especially sitting on the advisory board as chairman of Red and Yellow, is to get more especially black students. I've got a blog that I run on MarkLives, which is Young, Gifted, and Killing It, which showcases black creatives that make the work that you see. Because when you see an advert, you don't know who's behind it. So to see that, you know, it's a boy from Umhlablia and it's a boy from Soweto, hey man, I can also do this. So ours is to be a beacon and people to look at Avatar and say, okay, if these guys, one guy from Spreadview, one guy from rural KZN can do it, I can also do it, to encourage more participation as a sustainable career. So whether it's on the Transformation Council and IAB, whether it's the board positions that I serve on, is to encourage and promote that this is a sustainable career that one can pursue. You don't necessarily have to be a hotel.
There's also an interesting element to that. I think even when we talk about the future of work, there are sort of the repetitive, mundane, and day-to-day tasks that are easily automatable. I think that's where we might lose a lot of the jobs. If you look at where the literature suggests we're going to lose the jobs. And then there's also, I guess, the more critical thinking, the creative side of things where, you know, to be honest, you can't really teach a robot how to be as creative as a human being would be, because there's a lot that goes into that, that I think only human beings can do. How does that then influence, I guess, how we think about the economy going forward? Because one would think that surely industries like the creative economy should be leading the charge and saying, hey, you know, this future of work is also about saying, let's do away with some of the repetitive and mundane stuff so we can dedicate a bit more time to creative pursuits, critical thinking, to try and take humanity forward.
I always say the creative economy and entrepreneurship is probably the two industries that will be last affected by the changing economy. Because you have to make a plan when things get automated. And creativity is very closely linked to entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is about striving in the more difficult times. I see people complain about the economy, but I always believe that in those economies where it's the hardest hit by change, entrepreneurs start to strive, because entrepreneurs use creativity to find solutions. So creativity will always last. I think there's been rumors that robots will end up being able to do it, but I think it will be the last to get affected. You know, there's this computer Watson from IBM.
Yes, from IBM,
that is said to be also creative. But I think as long as entrepreneurship is around, and as long as we have problems in the world to solve, creativity and entrepreneurship will be safe.
Avatar, what does it look like 10 years from now? You're turning over what, 200 million now? What does that look like?
So ours is to build a business that doesn't need us. From when we started, my business partner and I said, as soon as Avatar doesn't need us and we can go on holiday and let a business run, we've built a sustainable business. So we want, and that's why we haven't sold Avatar, because we want it to be a South African business owned by South Africans and owned by fellow Africans. So we want to grow into the rest of the continent. That's the short-term goal that we want. But we love pushing boundaries. And I think the more we push boundaries, the more we want to grow, and the more we want to represent brands across the continent. So I see it as a continentally strong business and a global business. And that's what we're building. We're a bit crazy, but being crazy has gotten us this far, and we can't kind of enjoy pushing boundaries. So hopefully in 10 years' time, the business won't need us as much as it does now. But to grow into the rest of the continent is a priority for us.
Awesome. Mbov, let's leave it there, my brother.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you here on Business Unusual. Wish you all of the best, and send our regards to the team.
Thank you so much.
That there was Veli Ngubane. He's the co-founder and group managing director at Avatar, taking us through his own personal journey and that of the business that they've built from humble beginnings with 2,000 Rand in startup capital and now turning over 200 million in revenue. And it's a wrap from us here at the Business Unusual team for the week. We're back with you next week with more business news and sector insights between 1 and 2 p.m. Stay tuned to Newsroom Africa, channel 405.